And red lights in my mirror again. My heart jumped. It was James's patrol car. He pulled over, confused and slightly worried. He approached my window fully in character as Officer Connor, license and registration please. I played along, handing over my documents. But when Helen down to take them, I saw the worry in his eyes. Step out of the car, please, Mr. Mitchell. Now I was really concerned. I was out of the car, standing in the rain. He led me to the space between the vehicles where the patrol cars couldn't see us. Rodriguez is following me tonight, he whispered urgently. He's been suspicious watching me routes. I had to make this look legitimate, James. I'm sorry, he said, his voice tight. I panicked when I saw your car. I thought, I don't know what he thought. I wanted to hold him, to tell him everything would be okay, but we were too exposed instead. I stood there in the rain, maintaining a professional distance as he pretended to question me about my evening. After a few minutes, he handed back my license. Drive safely, Mr. Mitchell. I watched him walk back to his patrol car, his shoulders tense under his rain-soaked uniform. That night, he texted me, "Come over, please." I found him pacing his apartment, still in his wet uniform. As soon as I walked in, he pulled me into a desperate kiss. "I can't keep doing this," said when we finally broke apart, hiding, pretending watching every movie. It's killing me. "What are you saying?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. "I'm saying," he took a deep breath, "I'm saying I want to stop hiding. I love you, Daniel, and I'm tired of acting like you're just some guy teaching me photography." My heart soared at his words. Even a anxiety churned in my stomach. "Are you sure? What about your job? Your family?" "My job has anti-discrimination policies for a reason," he said firmly, "and my family feel either accept it or they won't, but I can't build a life with you if I'm living in shadows." That night marked a turning point. Over the next few weeks, James started coming out to people had trusted, first to Rodriguez, who surprised us both by being completely supportive. "I've known for months," his partner said with a laugh. "I was just waiting for you to tell me." Then came James's younger sister, Sarah, who hugged him and demanded, "Meet me immediately." His parents were a more difficult conversation. His father, a retired police captain, needed time to process the news, but his mother, after her initial shock, became our strongest ally. As winter settled over Phoenix, our relationship grew stronger, no longer two secret meetings in hidden months. We could finally experience life as a normal couple. James started leaving some of his clothes at my apartment, and I kept my camera equipment at his place for our weekend photography adventures. One snow ivy, as we walked hand-in and through the public garden, James suddenly stopped to remember when we used to do this separately, he asked, gesturing to our linked hands. Always keeping a careful distance, I squeezed his hand. "Feels like a lifetime ago. I want to show you something," he said, pulling me toward a formerly our spot near the bridge. It was where I'd taken one of my first night photographs of the city, the one I'd shown him during that fateful traffic stop. As we approached, I saw a small group of people gathered there: Rodriguez, Sarah, and even James's parents. My confusion must have shown on my face because James just smiled and led me forward. "What's going on?" I asked, but had just positioned me exactly where I'd stood that first night with my camera. "Daniel," he began, his voice slightly shaky, "this is where I first saw you months back. I pulled you over. You were setting up your tripod completely abarred in capturing the perfect shot. I was on patrol, and something about you just caught my eye." He took both my hands in his, and I suddenly realized what was upon. My heart began racing. I drove past this spot every night after Thathapine to see you again. When I finally had an excuse to pull you over, I was so nervous I almost forgot to ask for your. By now, tears were forming in my eyes. James dropped to one knee, and there's no pulling out a small box. "You changed me life, Noah. You helped me find the courage to be myself, to live honestly. Every day with you makes me want to be a better person, a better man. Will you marry Methro?" My tears, I could see his family watching us, his mother crying, his father trying to hide his own emotions. Rodriguez was grinning broadly, and Sarah was filming everything on her phone. "Yes," I managed to say. "Yes, absolutely." "Yes." Ash slipped the ring onto my finger and stood to kiss me. Cheers erupted from our small audience. The kiss tasted of tears and joy and promise. Later that night, to a favorite restaurant where James had arranged a celebration dinner. His me aside, I wasn't sure about the set. First, he admitted, not because he gestured vaguely, but because being a cop's spouse isn't easy. There's worry, fear, late nights, but watching my son, seeing how happy you'll make him, how you've helped him become a more himself. Well, I just wanted to say welcome to the family. Spring arrived, bringing with it our wedding preparations and a new chapter in our lives. We decided on a small ceremony in the harbor area where we'd spend so many evenings together. James's precinct had been surprisingly supportive, with many of his fellow officers offering to help with security arrangements. The day before our wedding, we returned to the spot where he'd first pulled me over. It had become a ritual for us, the places that marked significant moments in our relationship. To believe it all started with a speeding ticket, I said, leaning against his patrol car. He was in uniform, having just finished his shift. "Technically, I got that ticket," he grinned, pulling close. "I was too distracted by a cute photographer with the expensive Akima officer." "Connor, are you admitting to a dereliction of duty?" I teased. I'd say it was more like excellent community relations. The next day, surrounded by friends, family, and half the police department, we exchanged vows under a clear blue sky. Rodriguez served as James's best man giving a speech that had everyone laughing about how terrible we're at hiding our relationships in the early days. James' father, now fully embracing his role as father-in-law, surprised us by organizing an honor guard of police officers for our ceremony exit. As we walked through the red battens, I saw tears in James's eyes. "Never thought I'd have this," he whispered to me, of it. Being out, being happy, being married to the man I love, with my whole family here supporting us. Our honeymoon was a photography tour through Europe. James had insisted on combining our vocation with my passion. We spent 3 weeks capturing stunning landscapes and escapes, creating memories in every country we visited. His photography had improved dramatically since our first lessons, and we often compared shots of same scenes, his focus on people and movement, complementing my architecturality. When we returned home, we moved into a new apartment overlooking Thay Harbor. James continued his police were now openly wearing our wedding ring on duty while I expanded my photography business. Sometimes he'd stop by Miss Hoots in his patrol car bringing stealing quick kisses when no one was watching. 1 year after our wedding, I had my first gallery showing these interpieces. Was a series called Night Patrol, photographs capturing the quiet moments of city life, many featuring a certain police officer in various locations around Phoenix. The final image in the series was one that started it all: the harbor at night with police lights reflecting off the water at the gallery opening. James stood proudly beside me as I explained the inspiration behind the selection, looking at him in his dress uniform, his green eyes still making my heart skip a beat. I couldn't help but smile at how far we'd come from that first traffic stop. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, catching my expression just that. "Sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments," I replied, "like getting pulled over by a handsome cop who has a secret interest in photography." He laughed and pulled me close, not caring who saw best traffic stop of my career. As we stood there surrounded by friends and family looking at photographs that told our story, I realized that sometimes love finds we in the most unexpected places, even on Aquayard Street at midnight with red and blue lights flashing in your rear view. My name is Noah. I'm a 26-year-old freelance photographer living in Phoenix. I never expected that a routine traffic stop would change my life forever, but that's exactly what happened. On a cool autumn evening last September, I was driving home from a late-night photo shoot. My camera equipment skated across the back seat of my old Honda Civic. The streets were mostly empty and my mind was wandering to the photos I'd just taken at the harbor, long exposure shots of the city lights reflecting off the water. Blue and red lights suddenly flashed in my rear-view mirror, jolting me back to reality. I quickly checked my speed. I had been going a bit over the limit without realizing it. Sighing, I pulled over to the curb, trying to remember where I'd my registration. The beam of a flashlight swept through my car as footsteps approached. I rolled down my window, already reaching for my wallet, license and registration. "Please," came a deep, steady voice. I looked up and felt my breath catch. The officer standing at me window was gorgeous, tall and broad-shouldered, with sharp cheekbones and the most striking green eyes I'd ever seen. His nameplate read Officer James Connor. "Of course," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady as I handed over my Our fingers brushed briefly during the exchange, sending an unexpected spark through my body. Officer Connor studied my license, then shined his light into the back. "So I thought, a lot of expensive equipment you've got there. What's it for?" "I'm a photographer," I explained, "just finished a shoot at the harbor." His expression softened slightly. "With interest, professional freelance. I do mysterious and architecture." Some events nodded, then went back to his patrol car with my information. I watched him in my mirror, admiring how his uniform fit his athletic frame. "Stop it," I told myself, as a cop doing his job, not a potential date. When he returned, his demeanor had changed, slightly more relaxed, less official. "I'm going to let you off with a warning this time, Mr. Mitchell, but please watch your speed, especially at night." "Thank you, Officer Connor. I really appreciate that." He handed back my documents, then hesitated. "Those harbor shots, do you have any you could show me?" Surprised and pleased by his interest, I reached for my camera. "Sure, I'd love to." He leaned down closer to my window as I showed him the shots on my camera series display. Screen. His cologne, something woodsy and masculine, filled my senses as I scrolled through the photos. He asked intelligent questions about technique and composition. "You've got a good eye," he said, finally straightening up. "There's something really peaceful about these night shots." "Thanks." I smiled. I love capturing the quiet moments in the city. He seemed reluctant to end our conversation, and honestly so was Ifnally. He cleared his throat. "Well, drive safely, Mr. Mitchell, and maybe slow down a bit to catch more of those quiet moments will do." "Officer Connor, thanks again." As I drove away, my heart was racing, and not from the traffic stop. I couldn't stop thinking about those green eyes and the way he'd leaned in close to look at my photos, but I pushed the thoughts aside. Nothing could ever come of it. He was just being friendly while doing his job. Little did I know fate had other plans. 3 days later, I was setting up my equipment at the same harbor spot, hoping to capture the sunset. This Myers. I adjusted my tripod. A familiar voice behind me made me jump. "We meet again, Mr. Mitchell." I turned to find Officer Connor standing there, but this time in civilian clothes, dark jeans and a gray Henley thatch showed off his muscular build even better than his uniform had. "Officer Connor, I said, trying to keep my voice casual while my pulse quickened. James corrected with a small smile. I'm off duty. Daniel, I offered in return. What brings you here? I patrol this area a lot, he said, moving closer to look at me. Camera set up after seeing your photos. Other night I was curious if I'd catch you here again. My heart skipped a beat. Had he been looking for me? Till it's better at sunset, I explained, gesturing to Desky. Though I'm worried these clouds might ruin the shot. Mind if I watch for a while? He asked. I've always been interested in photography. Not at all, I replied, perhaps too quickly for the next hour. I explained different camera settings and composition techniques. While we waited for the perfect light, James was an attentive student, asking thoughtful questions and standing clues enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, painting the harbor in brilliant orange sand pinks, I caught him watching mine instead of the sunset. What? I asked, exudantly self-conscious. You get this look when you're concentrating, he said softly. It's captivating. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the air between us seemed meadow crackle with electricity. Then his phone buzzed. Breaking. The spell, damned, he muttered, checking the message. I've got to go, family dinner. But he hesitated, then pulled out a business card. If you're interested in giving photography lessons, give me a call. His card had his personal number written on the back in neat handwriting. I'd like that, I said, trying to contain my excitement. Good Hesmold, and my stomach did a flip, and Daniel tried to stay under the speed limit this time. I watched him walk away, his card burning a hole in my pocket. That night I couldn't sleep, debating whether to text him. Would it be too eager, too obvious? Did he even mean it the way I hoped? Finally, around midnight, I typed out a message. Thanks for keeping me company today. The sunsets turned out great. Daniel, to my surprise, he responded almost immediately. Glad I could help. When's your next shoot? Texted back and forth for us, talking about photography, our jobs, our... He told me about growing up in a family of cops, about his decision to join the force. Despite initially wanting to be an artist, I shared stories about my journey from corporate photography to freelance work, about finding my passion in capturing urban landscapes. The next week we met for coffee, then again for lunch. Each time the conversation floats easily and the attraction between us grew stronger, but neither of you addressed it directly. There was too much at stake, too many complications. Our lessons became a regular thing every weekend. We'd meet at different locations around the site. Sometimes we'd actually take photos, but more often we'd just talk, getting to know each other better with each meeting. Gone evening, about a month after our encounter, we were at the top of Carson Hill overlooking Thessity. The autumn air was crisp and James had brought coffee for both of us. So why did you really pull me over that night? I asked, taking a sip of my coffee. He chuckled, looking slightly embarrassed. Said you were speeding, but honestly I'd noticed you at that spot several times before. I was curious you were watching before that. Maybe, he admitted. There aren't many people taking photos at 2 a.m. You caught my attention. The way he looked at me when he said it made my heart race. We were sitting close together on a bench, our shoulders touching. James, I said softly, gathering my courage. What are we doing here? He turned to face me, his green eyes intense. I think you know it's complicated, I said. You're a cop, Andium. More, and you're the most interesting person I've met in years, he finished. Look, Daniel, I know it's complicated, my family, my job, but I can't stop thinking about you before I could respond. Helen in and kissed me. His lips were soft but insistent, and I melted into thecus, everything else falling away. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. I've wanted to do that since if night I pulled you over, he confessed. Too, I whispered, pulling him in for another kiss. That night changed everything. We started seeing each other properly, though we had to be discreet. James wasn't out at work, and the policy department, despite its progressivity, still had its share of old-school attitudes. We developed a routine. He'd come to my apartment after his shifts, or I'd meet him at obscure coffee shops in different parts of the site. At summertimes we drive to nearby towns where nobody knew us, just to have dinner together without worrying about buying scene. The secrecy was hard, but being with James made it worth it. He was everything I'd never known. I wanted, strong yet gentle, serious about his job but playful in private, and fiercely protective after those he cared about. One night, about 2 months into our relationship, he arrived my apartment looking troubled. What's wrong? I asked as soon as he walked in. Rodriguez, my partner, he asked about you today, James said, pacing my living room. Saw us having coffee yesterday, dropped. What did you tell him? Thought you were teaching me photography. But Daniel, he ran a hand through his hair. He didn't believe. Meyer is not stupid. I moved to him, putting me hands on his shoulders to stop his passing. Hey, look at me. Whatever happens, well, handle it together. He pulled mine to a tight embrace. I'm not ashamed, Ophis, he whispered into my hair. I'm just not ready for everything to change. The following weeks were tense. James became more cautious, constantly looking over his shoulder when we were together. I could see the strain it was putting on him, trying to maintain his professional image while hiding such as an significant part of his life. One rainy evening I was driving home from a wedding shoot when I saw a familiar blue